What happens when one of the biggest music legends in the world sits down for what should be a friendly chat and ends up walking out in absolute fury? In just 27 seconds of one comment, Denise Welch managed to turn a pleasant morning interview into one of the most shocking television moments ever captured on live daytime television. Elton John arrived at the Loose Women studio that morning in high spirits. He was there to talk about his farewell tour, his incredible career, and his life with his husband and their two beautiful sons. The audience was buzzing with excitement. This was Elton John, after all. A man who had given the world some of the most beautiful songs ever written. A man who had raised millions for charity. A man who had survived everything the music industry could throw at him and came out the other side with grace and humility. He walked onto the set wearing his signature colorful glasses and a bright suit that sparkled under the studio lights. The audience erupted in applause. He waved, smiled, and took his seat on the famous Loose Women couch. The other panelists greeted him warmly. Janet Street Porter gave him a hug. Kay Adams told him how much she loved his music, but then there was Denise Welch sitting at the end of the panel with a look on her face that suggested she had other plans for this interview. The conversation started off pleasant enough. They asked Elton about his tour, and he spoke passionately about how emotional it had been saying goodbye to his fans in each city. He talked about performing at Dodger Stadium and how the memories came flooding back from when he played there decades ago. He spoke about his family and how proud he was of his sons. His eyes lit up when he mentioned them. You could see the genuine love there. Then Denise leaned forward. She had been quiet up until this point, letting the other hosts ask their questions. But now she wanted to speak. She had that look in her eye. That look that regular viewers of the show knew all too well. The look that said she was about to say something controversial just for the sake of it. "Elton," she said, interrupting a story he was telling about his childhood, "can I just say something?" Elton stopped mid-sentence. He turned to look at her, still smiling, still being polite. "Of course," he said. "I have to be honest with you," Denise continued. "I have never understood the obsession with you. I mean, I know you are famous and everything, but I've never got it. Your music has always been a bit boring to me, a bit too safe, a bit too predictable." The studio went silent. The other panelists looked at each other uncomfortably. Janet tried to jump in. "Well, I think that is just a matter of personal taste, Denise. Elton has sold over 300 million records worldwide, so clearly a lot of people disagree with you." But Denise was not done. She waved her hand dismissively at Janet. No, let me finish. I'm just being honest. I think honesty is important. Do you not agree, Elton? I mean, you have had a great career. I am not taking that away from you, but I just think you are a bit overrated. There, I said it. Elton's smile had faded now. He sat back in his seat, his arms crossed. "Well," he said calmly, "everyone is entitled to their opinion. Music is subjective. If my songs are not for you, that is absolutely fine." You could tell he was trying to be diplomatic, trying to rise above it. But Denise was not going to let it go. She never did. "The thing is," she pressed on, "I think a lot of your success came from your image rather than your actual talent. The glasses, the outfits, the whole flamboyant thing. It was all very attention-seeking, was it not?" The other hosts looked horrified. Kay tried to steer the conversation in a different direction. "Elton, tell us about working with Bernie Taupin. That partnership has created some incredible songs, but Elton was no longer interested in talking about Bernie Taupin. His jaw was tight. His eyes were fixed on Denise. "Attention-seeking," he repeated slowly. "Is that what you think being authentic is? Being true to myself, I spent years hiding who I was because of people like you. People who judge, people who think being different is wrong." Denise laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, come on, Elton. Do not be so sensitive. I am just having a conversation. This is what we do on this show. We have opinions. We debate. There is a, difference between having an opinion and being rude," Elton said, his voice getting firmer. "You invited me here to talk about my tour, my music, my life, not to insult me." "I am not insulting you," Denise shot back. I am just saying I do not think you are as amazing as everyone makes you out to be. Is that a crime? Can I not have an opinion? Janet jumped in again. Denise, maybe we should move on. Elton, tell us about your Elton John AIDS Foundation. The work you have done there is truly remarkable. But Denise was on a roll now. She seemed to be enjoying herself. You know what else I have always wondered, Elton? Do you ever get tired of playing the same songs over and over again? I mean, how many times can you sing Rocket Man before you want to scream? Elton stared at her for a long moment. Rocket Man, he said quietly, is about isolation and loneliness, about feeling disconnected from the world. Every time I sing it, I think about the people in the audience who might be feeling that way, who might need to hear that song at that exact moment in their lives. So no, Denise, I never get tired of it, because it is not about me. It is about them. The audience started to applaud. They could see what was happening. They could see that Denise was pushing and pushing for no good reason, but she still was not done. Well, that is very noble of you, she said with a smirk, but let us be real. You are not exactly struggling, are you? You have made millions. You live in a mansion. You fly on private jets. It is easy to be noble when you are that rich. Elton's face turned red. How dare you, he said, his voice shaking with anger. How dare you sit there and judge me? You have no idea what I have been through. You have no idea how hard I have worked. You have no idea how much I have given back. I am just saying, Denise continued, completely unbothered, that maybe you should stop acting like you are some sort of saint. You are just a singer, a very wealthy singer. That was it. That was the moment. Elton stood up. He pulled off his microphone and placed it on the table. The studio was absolutely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. I came here today, Elton said, his voice trembling with emotion, because I thought this would be a nice conversation, a chance to connect with people, to share my music and my story. But instead, I have been insulted and belittled by someone who clearly has no respect for me or what I do. I have spent my entire career fighting for acceptance, fighting for equality, fighting to make the world a better place, and I do not need to sit here and take this from you. He looked at the other hosts. Janet K., thank you for being kind. I'm sorry I cannot stay. Then he looked directly at Denise. And you should be ashamed of yourself. He turned and walked off the set. The audience gasped. Some of them started to applaud. Others sat in stunned silence. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of the chaos. Denise sat there with a shocked expression on her face, as if she could not believe what had just happened. Well, she said, trying to laugh it off. That was a bit dramatic, was it not? But nobody was laughing with her. Janet was furious. Denise, what were you thinking? That was completely out of order. He is a guest on our show. You do not treat people like that. I was just being honest, Denise protested. Since when is honesty a bad thing? There is a difference between honesty and cruelty, Kay said sharply. What you just did was cruel. You went after him for no reason. He did nothing to deserve that. Backstage, Elton was pacing back and forth, still fuming. The producers rushed over to apologize to try to convince him to come back, but he was done. I will not go back out there, he told them. I have been in this business for over 50 years. I have dealt with critics, with journalists, with people who did not like my music or my lifestyle. But I have never ever been treated with such disrespect on a television show that invited me as a guest. Never. One of the producers tried to explain. Elton, we are so sorry. Denise sometimes gets carried away. She does not always think before she speaks. That is not an excuse, Elton said firmly. She knew exactly what she was doing. She was trying to provoke me, trying to get a reaction. Well, she got one. I hope it was worth it. Back on the set, the show was falling apart. The other hosts were trying to salvage the situation, but the damage was done. The audience was restless. Social media was exploding. People could not believe what they had just witnessed. Janet turned to the camera. We want to apologize to Elton John and to our viewers. What just happened should never have happened. Elton is a legend, an icon, and he deserved better than that. Denise rolled her eyes. Oh, please. Everyone is being so dramatic. I just asked a few questions. He is the one who walked off. He is the one who could not handle a bit of criticism. It was not criticism. Kay snapped. It was rudeness. There is a difference. You attacked him personally. You insulted his talent, his character, his entire career. And for what? For ratings, for attention. Denise shrugged. I am entitled to my opinion. If he cannot handle that, maybe he should not do interviews. The tension on the panel was palpable. Janet looked like she wanted to walk off herself. The producers were in the control room panicking, trying to figure out how to end the segment and move on to something else. But the damage was already done. In the dressing room, Elton was gathering his things. His manager was on the phone dealing with the fallout. His assistant was bringing him water. He sat down on the couch and took a deep breath. I should not have walked off, he said quietly. I should have stayed calm. I should have risen above it. His manager shook his head. No, Elton, you did the right thing. You stood up for yourself. You set a boundary. That woman was completely out of line, and you did not have to sit there and take it. But now it is going to be a whole thing, Elton said, rubbing his temples. It is going to be all over the news. People are going to take sides. It is going to overshadow everything I came here to talk about. Let them talk, his manager said. Anyone who watches that footage will see exactly what happened. They will see that you were respectful and polite, and she was rude and antagonistic. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Back in the studio, the show had moved on to the next segment, but nobody was paying attention. The audience members were all whispering to each other. Some of them were on their phones tweeting about what they had just seen. The hashtag was already trending. Denise tried to act like nothing had happened, but you could tell she was rattled. She kept glancing at the other hosts, trying to gauge their reactions, but they were not looking at her. They were barely speaking to her. When the show finally ended, Janet confronted Denise in the dressing room. What the hell was that? She demanded. What were you trying to achieve? I was just doing my job, Denise said defensively. I was asking questions, challenging him. That is what we are supposed to do. There is a difference between challenging someone and being disrespectful, Janet said angrily. You crossed a line today, Denise. A big line, and I think you know it. Denise scoffed. Oh, please. He is a celebrity. He can handle it. He has been in the business forever. If he cannot take a few tough questions, that is his problem, not mine. They were not tough questions. Janet said they were personal attacks. You called him overrated. You said his success was based on his image rather than his talent. You mocked him for being wealthy. None of that had anything to do with why he was here. He came here to talk about his tour and his foundation, and you turned it into an ambush. Denise crossed her arms. I do not have to justify myself to you. I said what I said. If people do not like it, tough. Janet shook her head in disbelief. You know what, Denise? I have known you for a long time, and I have always defended you when people said you were difficult. But today, you were out of order. Completely out of order. And I am ashamed to have been sitting next to you when you did that to Elton. She walked out, leaving Denise standing alone in the dressing room. Meanwhile, Elton had left the building. As his car pulled away from the studio, he looked out the window and sighed. He had been looking forward to this interview. He had wanted to share his excitement about his tour, to thank his fans for their support over the years, to talk about the causes that mattered to him. Instead, he had been blindsided by someone who seemed determined to tear him down for no reason at all. But as his manager had said, he had done the right thing. He had stood up for himself. He had set a boundary, and he had shown that even after 50 years in the spotlight, he was not going to tolerate being disrespected. The footage of the walkout spread like wildfire. Within hours, it was on every news site, every entertainment show, every social media platform. People were outraged at how Denise had treated Elton. They called her unprofessional, rude, and mean-spirited. They praised Elton for walking away with dignity. Some people tried to defend Denise, saying she was just doing her job as a journalist, asking tough questions. But most people saw through that excuse. They saw what it really was, a deliberate attempt to provoke and humiliate a guest for the sake of creating drama. In the days that followed, the debate continued. Should Elton have stayed and finished the interview? Should Denise have been more respectful? Should the producers have intervened sooner? Everyone had an opinion. But the one thing that everyone could agree on was that it had been one of the most uncomfortable, awkward, and dramatic moments in daytime television history. A moment where a beloved music legend had been pushed too far and decided he had had enough. A moment where a host had gone too far in pursuit of controversy. A moment that would be talked about for years to come. Elton never returned to Loose Women. He never spoke publicly about what had happened, choosing instead to let his actions speak for themselves. He continued his farewell tour, playing to sold-out crowds night after night, reminding everyone why he was a legend in the first place. As for Denise, she faced a wave of criticism from viewers, fellow presenters, and even some of her own colleagues. Some people called for her to apologize. Others said she should be removed from the show, but she stood by what she had done, insisting she had done nothing wrong. The incident became a cautionary tale about the difference between asking challenging questions and being needlessly cruel about the importance of treating guests with respect, especially when they have taken the time to appear on your show, about knowing when to push and when to pull back. But most of all, it became a reminder that even the biggest stars in the world have their limits, that kindness costs nothing, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from a situation that no longer serves you. Elton John had spent his entire career using his voice to spread love, acceptance, and hope. He had written songs that had comforted millions. He had raised countless amounts of money for important causes. He had stood up for people who had no voice of their own. And on that morning, when faced with someone who seemed determined to tear him down, he used his voice one more time, not with words or music, but with action. He walked away. And in doing so, he showed the world that self-respect is not negotiable. The interview that was supposed to be a celebration of his incredible career instead became a masterclass in dignity, a lesson in knowing your worth, a reminder that you do not have to accept disrespect from anyone, no matter who they are or what platform they have. 27 seconds. That was all it took for Denise Welch to turn a friendly interview into a disaster. 27 seconds of one comment that crossed the line. And in response, Elton John did what he had always done throughout his career. He stayed true to himself, stood up for what he believed in, and refused to be diminished by someone else's negativity. It was a moment that nobody who watched it would ever forget. A moment that sparked conversations about how we treat each other, how we conduct interviews, and how we define respect. A moment that showed the world that even the most patient, gracious people have their breaking point. And when Elton John reached his, he handled it with the same class and dignity that had defined his entire career. The music legend walked off that set with his head held high, leaving behind a host who had learned, albeit too late, that there are some lines you simply should not cross. And an audience who had witnessed something extraordinary, a real unscripted moment of truth that reminded everyone watching that fame and success do not make you immune to hurtful words, that legends are human too, and that sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is simply choosing to